I recently did an interview with Călin Georgescu, who's
Mhm.
running for president in Romania, and the Romanian Supreme Court annulled the election and basically froze it due to Russian interference. And I got a lot of flack for that interview, but I wanted to give that guy a voice because I thought this really kind of mirrors very similarly to what we saw with Trump, not in the last election, but the election before. And, Georgescu called the tens of millions that were sent by USAID a bride wrapped as social aid and an attack on their sovereignty. So so it sounds like this was kind of funded, this campaign against him and shutting him down was funded and instigated by USAID. Now the Russian interference was never proven; it was all just speculation. But the USAID stuff is proven, and so it's interesting. We just did that a couple of weeks ago, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I'm shocked. I'm shocked to find the U.S.-funded blob NGO swarm descending on a right-wing populist party in Europe. It's no, of course. I mean, this is the most predictable thing of all time. I mean, Georgescu has been a thorn in the side of the U.S. and U.K. and sort of NATO foreign policy establishment for a number of reasons. The central linchpin of world geopolitics right now is the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Romania occupies a critical strategic point in that war, not just because of the transport of arms from Pakistan to Romania into Ukraine, which has been a long time route to be able to run guns and arms and munitions in, but also because Romania shares the Black Sea coast with Ukraine, and NATO is presently in the process of building the single largest NATO base in Europe in all of NATO history, 100% bigger than the Ramstein base in Germany. And in fact, NATO is, as we speak, moving arms, supplies, jets, and drones to that base because it points straight out at Crimea and will be the place of force projection. This is the military hard power play on Crimea, which is absolutely essential to Russia in their view. This is what kicked off this conflict to begin with. Really, there was the effective secession of eastern Ukraine, but it was Russia's warm water port access in Crimea, and obviously their military base there. It was the Crimea referendum to join the Russian Federation that kicked off all of this, including the rattlesnake nest that Trump walked into with Ukraine and Russia and whatnot. And so, Georgescu has effectively campaigned on being friends with both sides, enemies of neither. Neutrality, does not want to antagonize Russia by building, the NATO's largest lethal warfighting capability right on, Romania's coast. It, makes Romania a target. Obviously, from NATO's perspective, the moment Russia bombs Romania and extends the fight beyond Ukraine, that would be a major international incident. But the attempt to remove Georgescu is the same thing that happened with Imran Khan. The Intercept published leaked cables.
Who is that?
Imran Khan was the prime minister of Pakistan. And again, there's this deep relationship between Pakistan and Romania here, because Pakistan was essentially how we trained and funded the Mujahideen in the 1970s and 80s against the Soviets. There's a lot of military capacities that we warehouse there. There's a lot of money laundering through those. There's the famous BCCI Bank, the Bank of Commerce and Credit International, sort of CIA proprietary bank that went down in a web of scandals around Pakistan. Great Britain, the UK, which has massive interest in Eurasia, just built an air bridge between Pakistan and Romania for this exact purpose. But Pakistan also Imran Khan, the prime minister, did not want to. He did not want to. This is shortly after the 2022 Russia, Ukraine military fiasco kicked off. The U.S. and U.K. foreign policy folks thought that, in their own words, when they were effectively bribing the political class of Pakistan, and this is all in The Intercept, everyone can look this up, these leaked cables, it showed that carrots and sticks were offered by the Biden foreign policy establishment to parliamentarians in Pakistan in order to oust Imran Khan in a no confidence vote, an impeachment that would take him from power. And then he was arrested shortly thereafter. He's currently in prison, even though he was the wildly popular, elected head of state. And the reason cited by the State Department for carrying out this coup operation was that Imran Khan had taken, quote, an aggressively neutral position, because Khan had said that he will continue to have Pakistan do trade with Russia. He does not want to allow weapons to go to killing Russians. And given how central that Pakistan is in this Pakistan-Romania corridor, George Askew, I see, is the same way, aggressively neutral. But that's all it takes. Mm-hmm. That was all it took for the State Department there. And can I continue just on this point?
Absolutely.
Really quickly? Going after the courts in order to nullify elections or influence the activities of the elections is the beating heart of what USAID and to a related extent, the State Department, CIA, and civil military folks at DOD do. USAID, it is in their charter to pursue so-called judicial reform, which allows them to effectively bribe and try to rig the decisions of judges and the judiciary and the rise and fall of laws in foreign countries. And USAID made a special project of targeting what they call EMBs, election management bodies, and which are the bodies in countries that adjudicate elections. So, for example, it's our Supreme Court that decided, the Bush versus Gore hanging Chad's, election in the U.S. 20 years ago. In Brazil, the EMB, the election management body, is what's called the TSE. It's basically a subcomponent of their STF Supreme Court. That is the de Moraes Voldemort judge who who banned X, seized assets from Starlink, and is basically criminalized pro-Bolsonaro support on Brazilian social media. And they were sought after by USAID. They were USAID. I have their internal documents where they've, in just a few meetings alone, they'll gather together representatives from 12 different EMBs across the world and have USAID basically convince them, train them on what kind of ways to structure the court or what task forces to set up in the disinformation space in order to allow those courts to not just adjudicate the elections, but to be able to effectively criminalize questioning the elections or speech during the election cycle. This is part of how the power in Brazil, of that court expanded to such a huge size. USAID was pumping money into that whole network around that court, pumping up the academic thought leadership, pumping up the legal advocates who were making pitches to the prosecutors and to the disinformation task force itself. And if they're going after every EMB, election management body, in the world effectively, to get those courts to criminalize populist speech, you can bet your bottom dollar they're doing that to criminalize populist election results. In those same SEPS documents, this is the Political Process Strengthening Center at USAID. In that program, they define the enemy as populism. They say that part of the purpose is to prevent the evolution of populist thought leadership, because they define right-wing populism as a threat to democracy because it undermines the efficacy of democratic institutions, U.S.-backed NGOs, and civil society institutions in the area. Well, guess what George Askew is? He's a right-wing populist, or he's a populist at least, however you want to define it. he is, in their view, the virus that the white blood cells of USAID are custom built to take out. And I just have to stress this point. This was attempted against Donald Trump when he won the 2016 election. When the Russiagate predicate came out about social media interference, everyone can trace the timeline of this and look up the contemporaneous news reporting. When the CIA came out and said there was Russian interference on U.S. social media, and there were Russian bots and trolls, and RT and Sputnik were supporting Trump, they tried to get Congress to not certify the election result on the basis of Russian interference in the election. And to my recollection, they got, I believe, almost somewhere between a dozen and 24, or almost a dozen U.S. congressmen to agree not to certify that vote. Now, it's not nearly enough. You need, there's over 500 people in the House and, 100 in the Senate. But if you can get that ball rolling and poach sitting members of Congress here in the U.S. 8 years ago, before they even built up this apparatus to be juiced and as powerful as it's become, think of how much easier that task is, and how far a little bit of money goes a long way in order to juice those networks in Romania.
Yeah, that's what caught my attention, was it seemed almost identical with the Russian interference. And, what actually blew him up was a TikTok smear campaign.
Right.
And the TikTok smear campaign actually resonated with a large portion of the population in Romania, which boosted him up. I mean, the guy spent next to nothing on his campaign and had a tremendous lead. And, one of the things that I spoke with him about in detail is how he does not want that NATO base there. I did ask him, will you be able to stop that? He couldn't answer that, which means, maybe he can't. I don't know. But it seemed like the reason they went after him is because he does not want that base built, the biggest ever NATO base ever to be built in Europe, to include World War II. And it, it obviously would, it'd be a detriment to the Ukrainian side of the war. And he expressed many times he just wants peace. He doesn't want Romania involved in that. That's not their problem. I think that's the way a lot of Americans feel too. But so I think you hit it. But so basically what USAID is doing is they're influencing their politicians to sway a certain way. Are they also paying off their media? Because they wouldn't platform him.
Yeah.
In fact, he was not heard other than on TikTok. The day after I announced the interview that was going out with him, they had 250,000 people start protesting in front of their parliament.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's what USAID does. They create the surround sound. This is part of the reason I call it the USAID Truman Show. USAID goes after every single category of institution in the country they're targeting. The media, control over social media speech, the unions, the workers' groups, the judiciaries, the parliamentarians, the arts and music and culture, the universities and the academic institutions, everything. Even folks in the commercial for-profit sector side.